his name's sitting.
Mrs. Eisenhart.
Here.
Mr. Hefner.
Mr. Hefner has a medical procedure.
Mr. Hohenfeld.
Here.
Mrs. Hune.
Here.
Mr. Reitenauer.
Here.
Mr. Sheets.
Here.
Mr. Stubitz.
Here.
Mrs.
She is our autistic teacher in the elementary school. She does a phenomenal job, has fit right into the school district, has really grown in terms of getting to know the students, getting to know the faculty. She's become a resource in the elementary school. This is what was written on behalf of Angie Kemp. Angie is an exceptional educator who goes above and beyond her day to support her students' academic, social, and functional growth. She pours her heart into creating programs that foster inclusion, collaborating with staff, parents, and team members with kindness and grace. Angie addresses sensitive issues to ensure her students are valued members of the school community, empowering them to communicate and thrive. Her dedication to enhancing their lives makes a profound impact, and we're all better for having her part of our team.
Nice. And I also nominated Angie. I am so grateful to have her. I feel like we have found the hidden gem in autistic support in the teacher that we could fit in there. The way that she has transformed the classroom, the physical classroom, but the classroom atmosphere, the team that she has developed, the paraprofessionals. You go in there and it feels like a party, but they're learning. They're having fun. Sometimes they do party. They'll bring in early dismissal.
Only early dismissal days for like a strong hour and a half.
Yes.
We're learning before them.
Yeah. But I'll just say like the vibe and aura of the classroom is completely full of positive energy. And when you look at some of the students that struggle with some of the typical skills in that population, the growth that you see is incredible. And it's because of her leadership in the classroom, empowering the paraprofessionals that she works with, but really her taking on the professional development, the hard work ethic, and really researching how she can best meet the needs of her students. I am so grateful. I'm so happy you're on our team.
I'm so grateful to have a leader like you.
Yes.
Appreciate you so much.
No
way. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Congratulations. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
So our second recipient for today is Mr. Craig Ronco, who is a parent in the school district, but for the award is also our middle school or our high school girls soccer coach. So I'd like to take a moment and recognize Mr. Ronco. Mr. Ginch is going to say a few words on his behalf in his role as high school principal, but also now interim athletic director. So here's the write-up that came on behalf of Mr. Ronco. On Friday night, our varsity field hockey team was playing at Tulpahawken for their homecoming. Halftime had just finished. We were partway through the third quarter, and our freshman goalie began vomiting and having multiple seizures on the sideline. Our coaches were doing their best, were doing as much as they could while the game continued on. Craig was there as the soccer coach as they were playing with the game after us. He ran over to the sideline and began to stabilize and administer aid to the young student athlete until the medics arrived. You can imagine being in Burnville. It took much longer than any one of us would have liked. It was an incredible, scary for everyone to watch and wait. He represented Brandywine Heights so very well, and I am so proud that he was part of our athletic staff. Thank you, Craig, for helping study the situation. Congratulations. So Mr. Ronco has a background in the medical field, obviously, but that led very well to the situation. On the flip side of that, I also wanted to have Mr. Ginge speak a little bit to his talents as a coach and the connection to kids.
So I want to thank Coach Ronco for all he does. I know that I was a coach for many years, and I always wanted to be the kind of coach whose players felt positive and supported. And in talking to some of the players, this is the kind of coach that Coach Ronco is. He puts his all into the team, donates a tremendous amount of time, and he's really phenomenal to work with in all of my different roles. It's been great to be around him, but also great to be around the girls when they speak about how well practices are going. You can see that they genuinely love each other as a team. They're one of my favorite teams to actually watch because not only are they competitive, but they're working for one another. And you can tell that they get that from the culture that's in their team, thanks to Coach. So I know that there was obviously a serious medical situation, but I think beyond that too, just speaking to what an incredible coach he is, and a resource to our athletic department, and our high school, and to these young ladies that are working for him, speaks to what a wonderful job he's doing. So thank you, Coach.
There you go. Congratulations. Thank you, Brian.
Moving on, is there any?
And I appreciate everyone's willingness to adjust this schedule. One of the big ones is that we have a recognition of an individual become our assistant principal at the high school, and his family's here with his young daughter. And so it's a good opportunity for us to recognize that and celebrate that. And again, appreciate the board's flexibility. As we look at our items here of personnel matters, we have our head cook at the middle school, intermediate school that's going to be retiring. She's retiring after 36 years of service as the head cook here. It is amazing what Linda Reinhardt has done here, the amount of time she's put in. She has been a true representative of the culture here of the middle school staff. Students, you remember Mrs. Reinhardt, she's been a connection to the students, the staff, and really has been a wonderful employee over the course of this 36 years. So we celebrate that, started in 1988. So a really great run. Item B1 is to approve then Miss Christine Miller, who currently works in the food service department at the intermediate middle school, to become the replacement and the head cook. So it's great to be able to see that progression and that leadership be able to just transition right within the ranks of the within the kitchen at the middle school here. Item B2 is to approve Mr. Strohecker. Mr. Strohecker is currently a fourth grade teacher. He's been in the school district serving in different and various roles in classroom capabilities. Unfortunately, he has become the benefactor of declining enrollment and so has had to shift and take on many different roles along the way. Has done it with a smile, has done it with grace, and has done it willingly in times just to save his own team. And so we are very delighted to be able to recognize and be able to have the recommendation for Mr. Strohecker to become the assistant principal at the high school. He comes to us with a ton of experiences in terms of the classroom side of it, but more importantly, as he looks to take on the leadership role, has recently performed his internship and his degree, and is looking to take on that next step and work with students, learn the role with Mr. Ginge, and we know that those two are going to be a great bond and connection together as a role model. So recommending Mr. Strohecker to be the next high school assistant principal as B2. And then B3 would be to take our 8th grade learning support teacher, who's Mrs. Mackenzie Kistler, new to the school district. She just took on this role this year, and then transition her into that 4th grade position. The final domino of this whole thing is that the 8th grade learning supports position has to get filled, which will then allow Mr. Strohecker to move and Mrs. Kistler to move, and then everything will come into play. But these positions, and that's why they're TBA, are held off purposely until we get that 8th grade learning support position backfilled. We're in the process of interviewing right now. We had an interview last week, a couple more this week, and hopefully that will yield a positive outcome, and all these things can fall into place pretty quickly. Any questions on those before I move forward? Item C, the appointments. We have co-curricular appointments. We have athletic event workers that are on here for the fall season, a couple adjustments for that. We have winter athletic coach recommendations that are on here. The exciting piece for that is basically all those positions are filled as we look to go into that winter season. Sometimes we go into that winter season and there might be 1 or 2 lingering positions, but those roles have been pretty much all locked into place, and a huge kudos goes to Mr. Lapp, who was the interim athletic director, for coordinating all this, for doing the winter coaches meetings and prepping everything, and having the whole winter season set for success. So give him a ton of credit, and also the winter recognitions are in front of you this evening. I do want to point out that there's one item for consideration that's new, and that's to approve a middle school assistant weight room position. The reason we're recommending this is that there are 91 students that showed interest into the middle school weight room. There's a total of 65 that signed up, 25 that we end up having to turn away. On average, there's about 40 to 45 kids that come into that weight room on a daily basis. It's a lot of students to manage. It's a lot of moving parts. That weight room is a small area. It only really has the capacity for 2025. And so they're using other spaces, which is great, but it really does require then an additional set of hands. So this is a one-time proposal. We're asking just for this year. If it continues, we may have to look at it, but at least for now, it's a one-time position, and it's a great way to support the kids. And if they're interested in doing it, that's a pretty neat opportunity. So the flip side of that is this year we're not running the after-school program because we weren't able to find the staff members. So there is some offset savings there to be able to afford this. So, that is a caveat for the winter coach positions there. Just wanted to point that out. And then item C4C is the winter athletic event workers. Finally, under F, there is other personnel items. We have the extension of a sick bank for an employee that will run through the end of the first semester. And then item F2 is to appoint Mr. Farina as the temporary district safety and security coordinator. That is a requirement by PDE that we have to have a named safety security coordinator. You cannot go without 30 days without having a safety security coordinator, not knowing exactly when the transition is going to occur with Mr. Schoecker. He will eventually become that safety and security coordinator. We have Mr. Farina temporarily in that position. So really by name and by recognition to the state only, but just for everyone's recognition of that. Any questions on the personnel items?
Hearing none, could I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Sorry.
Mr. Hohenschultz,
Yes.
Mrs. Hugh,
Yes.
Mr. Reitenauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
7 yeas, the motion passes.
Mrs. Schoecker, congratulations.
The Guidance Office presented a financial aid night on October 15th to provide students and families with information concerning available financial aid packets, options, and strategies to pay for college. Ninth graders took field trips to BCTC East and West to learn about career and technical programs. The first blood drive of the year was on October 17th, organized by Key Club and the Miller Keystone Blood Foundation. Halloween Town was on October 25th, where many high school clubs organized games, cookie decorating, and trick-or-treating for families. The following week of October 28th to November 1st, there was a Halloween-themed Spirit Week. The first 2 Spirit Days, Whiteout and Superhero Day, were organized by the Students Against Destructive Decisions, or SAD Club, and the rest of the Spirit Days, including Blackout Day on Wednesday, Costume Day on Thursday, and Camo versus Hawaiian Day on Friday to support your favorite Powder Puff team. The Powder Puff game was on November 1st. It was a fun night at the middle school with great dance routines and the juniors coming out on top winning the game. The high school marching... yeah. Duh. That's not important. The high school marching band just had their last parade for the fall at the elementary school on October 31st. The band also participated in the Topton, Emmaus, and Albertus Halloween parades. Both the band and the choir are now preparing for their upcoming winter concerts. The Senior Citizen Luncheon will be held on November 13th. And lastly, we're now officially in the second marking period, with the first quarter ending on October 25th.
In athletics, our golf team finished the season with a record of 1-14. Field hockey ended with a record of 2-3. Girls soccer had a record of 7-11, and boys soccer went 8-8. Girls tennis finished with a record of 5-7. Girls volleyball had a record of 7-10. And finally, winter sports practices officially begin on November 15th.
Last month, on October 31st, elementary school students celebrated Halloween by dressing up in their costumes and walking in the annual Halloween parade. Then on November 1st, it was the 50th day of school, so the kindergartners celebrated by having a 50s themed day. It also included fun math activities and even counting to 50. On November 14th, there will be a parent-student math night workshop. On November 22nd, the elementary school will host their annual Little Shoppers Village event from 6 to 8. Which will include pictures with Santa and a bake sale. Lastly, on November 22nd, 25th, 26th, and 27th, all Brandywine students will have early dismissals because of parent-teacher conferences.
The Middle School Key Club wanted to update you on a trick-or-treat for UNICEF coin drive. They hosted a penny wars as a friendly homeroom competition. It was very successful. Grades 6th through 8th grade raised $1,060 for UNICEF organization. Our Veterans Day celebration will be held on Monday, November 11th. Student Council has been working hard to prepare for this special event. The halls have been decorated with banners bearing the names of our special guests. The school will hold a Veterans Day poster contest with winners in each grade. BHM's Key Club will also be hosting a district-wide food drive from November 18th to December 6th. Our goal is to donate 65 boxes to the Brandywine Food Pantry. Since we made it happen last year, we hope we can do the same this year. Each grade level has been assigned an item to bring in. In December, BHM's Key Club will pack up the boxes and donate them for the holidays. At the intermediate school, embryology lessons have started for 4th grade. The students are careful to monitor the temperature and humidity in the incubators so the embryos can fully develop. The students are responsible for turning the eggs each day so they grow properly. Hatch Day will be November 18th. Parent-teacher conferences for the ISMS run from Friday, November 22nd to Wednesday, November 27th. Students will be able to join the book fair from November 20th to November 27th in the library. Classes will be viewing and shopping throughout the week. Families are welcome to stop by during Friday and Tuesday conferences from 1 to 3, but on Monday, the time is extended from 1 to 5. Thank you.
Great job, ladies. Thank you.
So a couple items under Board of Directors report this evening. We have the meeting minutes from October 7th. Any adjustments, corrections, updates to those meeting minutes that need to be made? Okay, if there are none, then they will be recorded as they are presented. Under the first reading of policies, these are new policies that you have not seen before. They're pretty much no revisions. The acceleration promotion, no revision. Student records policy, no revision. Just part of the annual or the cyclic review process. The supplemental disciplines record has pretty substantial changes to it. That is really a policy that pertains to adjudicated youth and some special education components to it. This is a PSBA rewrite of the policy and has to be connected to some changes that happened in the school code. So there are some significant changes in there, but honestly, one of those policies that we do not really use that much because we don't have too many students in that scenario. Item 16. The special education student records policy. Those are no revisions there, just a policy review. The suspensions and expulsions policy has a small tweak to it. In the suspensions policy, it says when there's exclusion from school from a suspension, there's a statement in there that says the parent, guardians, and school and the superintendent shall be notified, and then it says immediately in writing when a student is suspended. That's old language in terms of when we would send correspondence and written correspondence. Often families will come in. We purposely want to meet with a family if there's a suspension, even when they're picking up the child. Or there's a phone call that might go home. That's most often the case if they're not coming in to pick up the child. And so in those scenarios, even though we are notifying parents and then we subsequently notify them in writing, we're not immediately notifying them in writing. And so it's a catchphrase. Talking to Mr. Pratt about this, we felt like it was best to just remove that immediately in writing phrase. We're still going to notify them. It's just not immediately in writing. So that's the recommended change for that policy. More procedural, but it is one that we want to make sure we clean up. There is also a Title I parental involvement policy, and that parental involvement policy is just an operational review. It's one that we have to do because of the federal Title I monies that we receive. So it's one that we put on every year. Those are the updates for the first reading policies. The second reading policies are as presented. There really are no substantive changes to those policies based off of what was presented before and discussed with the board previously. Item D is to do the elections for the PSBA officers. This is a slate of officers that are going to be voted on in January 1st at the PSBA office. When you go through this, you'll see here item D1 is for the president-elect. There's one candidate, there's one person. Vice president, there's one candidate, there's one person. The Eastern Zone representatives, it's a one candidate, again, one person. The PA Insurance Trustees, there's 3 candidates, there's 3 people. And then finally, there is the School Board Secretary Steering Committee. There's 3 candidates that you have to choose, but there's only 2 to choose. So in past years, we would give you the bios and ask to kind of pick which ones you'd like. In this case, this year, it's pretty much a clean slate, if you will, in terms of the people that are on the list are the ones that you would normally pick, unless there was some reason you didn't want to select somebody. So any questions on that PSBA item? With that being said, we'll turn the review for committee reports.
All right, committee report.
Good evening, everyone. The BCIU Board of Directors last met on Thursday, October 17th. I've highlighted a handful of items in the written report. I did want to share a couple of those items tonight. So the first one is the state mandates document. You've seen me and heard me talk about this in the past. This is yet another updated version. It is 99 pages of detailed information about all of the various mandates from Pennsylvania state. The checklist, which is more actionable, is a 16 or 15 page document. And then there are 2 additional sort of summary documents which summarize revisions up through October 24th for the current school year. So Mr. Pottiger's nodding his head because I know he's got access to these already. But grateful to the BCIU for documenting all of this in a pretty actionable, useful way and making it available free of charge, not just to every school district around Berks County, but frankly, the Berks County IU has been asked if we wouldn't be willing to share these documents with other IUs. There's 28 other IUs around the Commonwealth. So really useful information. If anybody wants copies of them, I can get you them. But these are impactful documents in particular, even just as a visual aid when you do your advocacy work at the Capitol in Harrisburg and with other legislator meetings to help them understand when we talk about unfunded mandates and budget challenges and those kinds of things. Next up, 2 new offerings that the IU is putting out there to districts, both related to technology. One, through the Office of Technology, they are offering a service around cybersecurity. It's targeted for the school environment. It's about 16 hours of curriculum or program training. The annual cost to school districts would be $11,700. This year it'll be prorated 50% because obviously it'll only be for half the year. And there's no limit on the number of attendees. Cybersecurity is more and more and more becoming a hot button issue. There's been some school districts who have really been burned badly. And of course, we don't want to be one of them. With our relationship with Nimble IT, I imagine we have more expertise perhaps through them than many of our peer districts. But in any case, the IU's creating that service offering. And the second service offering they're launching is what they call an academy. So currently they do this superintendent's academy. So they match up new superintendents from around the county with existing superintendents. Our own Mr. Pottinger has served as a mentor for a variety of years now for a variety of new superintendents at his peer level. That concept is being leveraged across technology because, again, the importance of technology as it relates to supporting the school districts. So there will be 3 meetings this year, and there are 4 new tech directors from Berks County school districts that will be matched with existing tech directors. I don't know where Brandywine stands with that. Are we one of those 4 that's been matched, or?
No.
Okay. Okay. Probably because of our relationship with Nimble, I suspect. But I don't think it would hurt to keep our eyes on both of these items. And see how it goes if we choose not to participate. One other thing that the BCIU spent some time on is some new federal regulations related to payroll and the difference between exempt and non-exempt employees. And I haven't heard us talk about this yet, but I can't imagine that it wouldn't impact us. So effective January 1st, 2025, there's a threshold for an annual salary of $58,656. If you're an exempt employee and you don't make that much money annually, we as an employer may have to consider either bumping your salary or changing the scope of work, rewriting your job description, and or reclassifying you from exempt to non-exempt. So detailed information has been shared, but this obviously has impact on staff, not teachers. Teachers are excluded, but folks like nurses, librarians, athletic trainers, although I don't think we're impacted by athletic trainers because of our contract with St. Luke's. But I don't know, again, Mr. Pottinger, where we as a district stand with this issue. But I know a lot of our peer districts are knee deep in trying to navigate this.
Yes, so we had one person that was impacted.
Just one?
Correct.
Okay. And I guess at some point you'll update the board in terms of what your strategy is.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a reminder, it's not just the salary threshold that you have to evaluate. It's also the other parts of the exemption that you have to look at. And secondly, depending on what happens tomorrow, it might be moot. So just understand that as well too, because there are challenges in regard to this, and who knows what's going to be the outcome based on that.
Right. But I guess it wouldn't impact us terribly if there's only one person. So that's good. But before I knew that there was one person, there would be an expectation that we would plan accordingly. And then if things at the federal level were to change, we might get off the hook.
Right.
But I don't think you can't not plan, is my point.
Correct.
Okay.
But also understand that in 2027, it may change as well too, just based on the fact that the way the legislation's written, they're going to be doing surveys and making adjustments as we go along.
Sounds good. Thank you for that clarification. Two other quick things. The BCIU has been awarded a $135,000 grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Education related to gifted education. And the IU is going to serve as a regional training hub over the next 5 years to support equitable identification practices and to ensure more students, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds, have access to gifted educational services. And then the final thing was that the IU hosted its annual Keeping Kids Safe Symposium 2 Wednesdays ago, October 23rd. I had previewed that the topic was human trafficking awareness, and I know a handful of our administrators had the opportunity to attend. So I don't know if you're willing just to maybe share a highlight or two based on how you thought it went
Yeah,
and what the key learning was.
It was a very impactful day. There was speakers that spoke at the from the FBI national level. There was a speaker that spoke from a recovering victim recovery perspective and the efforts they were wrapping around individuals. And then the really impactful pieces, there was speakers that came from the DA's office as well as local law enforcement that are dealing with it at a local level here in Berks County. And the amount of impact for instance, they shared an example of they did a sting and they set this up after 20 plus arrests in a few hours. They had to take the sting down because they couldn't process the people fast enough. So that post kept going, and they ended up, I forget how many they said of people that like hits that they had over that course of time. It was really frightening, but it's happening here in the backyard. And that was really the takeaway of this, is it's something we have to be very cognizant of. And then a plethora of resources were shared with everyone in the audience about, if you suspect this, here's the resources, here's the warning signs, and then here's the resources to be able to support families or students in those types of scenarios. And I think the big takeaway in all that is, when we think of human trafficking, I think we often go to what we would almost kind of put our mind into, like, forgive me if I'm offending anyone, but almost like someone in a shipping container or someone from Mexico coming. Trafficking now is more used universally as in a, for lack of a better word, almost a prostitute type scenario. Sex trafficking is connected under that human trafficking umbrella now. So it changes a little bit of the definition of what we think about with that, but it's nonetheless still very impactful. Very impactful. So some of the takeaways from that.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing.
Yep.
And then just the next meeting of the board is Thursday, November 21st, and I'll provide an update at the December meeting for that. Thank
I can
you.
just add on for the state mandates document.
Yeah.
Those documents that are there, if anyone needs a copy, I can get you a copy of it. They are ever changing, but it is a great resource to have. When the 18 superintendents of Berks County were up at Harrisburg this past week and met with the appropriations chair of the Senate, and were able to push that agenda item. We also met with all our local legislators, House and Senate, and distributed copies to those individuals as well. We also met with PD and talked with PD about this. Obviously, PD doesn't make the law, so they're more the carrier out of those mandates. But it is and I believe all but 2 IUs in the state, I could be wrong in the number, I think it's 2 IUs in the state, are using that document. So pretty much the entire state's using that template that the BCIU created. The next takeaway step of that is we're working locally as a group of superintendents to target that list, see if there's things in there instead of just saying, look at this list, this is crazy, which we've been beating that drum for a while now. They keep adding one to it, so that's not resonating. So the idea now is can we make almost like a 3-tiered approach to this? What are those easy ones we can just take off that do we still need to advertise board meetings in the newspaper anymore? Or can that be done advertised on social media? Like simple ones like that. What's an easy list of things that they can clean up? A secondary list of what are 3 things that are just like really impactful ones that would be powerful for the 500 school districts in Pennsylvania that we can propose some legislation to change. And then the third idea of that is, there was back in the early 2000s, a bill that allowed waivers for mandates. and you could apply to PDE, and then you could get a waiver for a mandate. So we're looking to resurrect that waiver in hopes that that might allow us, instead of doing an annual training that we'd have to do, can we get a waiver for that and do it every other year, every 3 years or something like that. So simple things like that that we're trying to make some meaningful impact on. So that's the next step.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reitnauer.
BCTC met October 23rd at the East Campus. BCTC end of first quarter is October 30th. Fall open house, West Campus is November 12th. East Campus was November 13th. Holiday break is November 27th to December 2nd. There is no BCTC meeting in November. The JOC reorganization meeting is December 12th at the West Campus. And that's everything. I'm also got the pleasure of being on the negotiation committee, and we are very close to having an agreement with the support staff. I will give you the details when it's finalized.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. I have nothing to report. Our next meeting will be December 19th.
Thank you.
Report there. Sorry.
All right, the floor is still yours for negotiation and compensation committee.
We are going to be meeting with the negotiations committee to just on Wednesday to discuss some support staff personnel benefits. So that is our update there. I do want to say, if I could just jump in with something else. This Saturday was the PSBA delegate assembly meeting that I attended online. Some of the things that were presented, mostly the ones that had the most conversation, I would say, are surrounding mental health, surrounding school, the free lunch, the investments in school safety, and then the charter school. Those were the ones that had the most discussions. I do have the updated approvals. If you want copies of those, I can email those out. Other than lengthy discussions, everything was presented past. I will say having the Zoom and the in-person together is very disruptive, and it was talked about the entire time. So hopefully they can figure something out. But if we do, as a board, ever have anything that we want to add, or because in the summer is when they request boards to submit their proposals for anything to be added to the PSBA. So if we ever think about something like that and we want to add something, that's when it is done. And then they discuss as a committee and what should be put on, and then we all vote on that. So there were 4 main committee priorities that were reviewed and passed, and then just some changes. Wording is always a really big thing that they have a lot of comment on how things need to be worded correctly. And then obviously the mental health, the school safety, and the free breakfast throughout the state. So those were the main topics there.
Great. It's funny you mention that, because that was one of our talking points, that the state was that 120 million or the 180 million that used to be there for 90 million for safety and security, 90 million for mental health, is now collapsed to 100 million. And that 100 million is, as you know from the conversation we had last month about the safety and security, is just enough to cover the security guard, which is the mandate. So they put another mandate in place. They gave us grant dollars, but it's just enough to cover that. There's no money left over for mental health anymore. And so we were kind of beating that drum that is a huge one preventer of physical safety, and then 2, there's no dollars for that right now. We all know that mental health is a major challenge across the state. So that was kind of what we were pushing, that you have to resurrect those dollars because they have to be there.
Yeah, so they want to prioritize for a permanent funding stream for mental health.
Yeah.
So, which had a lot of polarizing back and forth, and I can see the comments on both sides were very good, but it's not something that we're getting away from. So I think it's just needs to be done in the right manner. So like having Mrs. Menino, facilitate things like this. So taken under the direction of the district and what the district needs, I think is important. That's all. That is.
Just a couple quick items. We're going to hear about solar, so I'm going to skip over that. Middle school stadium project real quick. We are hitting maybe the final road here. We're going to be putting up the railing next week, hopefully, for the middle school plaza, and that will then wrap up that project a couple months late. And then the high school stadium project is going phenomenal. It is amazing how well that project is going. To have the throwing events in the field done, the softball fences up, all that stuff on that side of the project is all complete. The behind the bleachers, there were grass areas. Those grass areas are filled in and concrete's in there, and they have the base poured for the bricks where they're going to go. The field is stripped off. The track is gone. The field's gone. The field is basically stripped off completely. They are making tremendous progress. DEP gave us notice they're going to be out tomorrow to do an inspection. So we are still waiting to get that permit process moving with DEP for the actual revision. One of the holdups for that is we are also talking about that expansion onto the wood shop and then the ag greenhouse. Thank you. Schlaud's going to pick up and do that civil engineering and wrap that all into one bundled package to DEP instead of doing two separate ones. And they're basically willing to do that as part of this project. So huge savings financially, but also just speaks to that partnership that they really have for the school. It's been a phenomenal firm to work with. Phenomenal. Dean and I had a chance to meet with the owner the other day. Barry Schlau came out and had a really good conversation. About what was it, 6:30 in the morning? We got to meet with them on a brisk fall morning. Dean has been phenomenal in terms of overseeing the projects, managing them, meeting with the groups, coordinating all the different pieces. And so give him a ton of credit for everything he's done in terms of the project. But really excited about the momentum. I'm meeting with the students tomorrow and going to do a presentation update with them. They see obviously all the work. And then the final piece of that is we're going to start a survey out to the kids where they're going to be able to pick the line colors for the field. So that's going to be the next piece that we're going to be rolling out, and that'll finalize then the turf field and what the turf field's going to look like. So
removing that top layer doesn't impact any, we're not working too far, are we? With them coming
so
out.
far so good.
Has there been any conversation on when that permit might be?
Because of the other piece of it connected, I'm anticipating probably January, February. But they have everything ready to roll. It's essentially the only thing they'll have to do is put the turf field in.
So it's not that we submitted it and are waiting for that permit now. We were
haven't
holding
Yeah,
to add this other piece to it.
correct.
Gotcha.
It's painful to wait, but it's the right thing to do for the whole thing. It'll make it go so much smoother because there's differing opinions of can you have two different permits or waivers or whatever they call them to the same project or the same land. So it made sense to clump it together.
Are they coming out to inspect the new additions or the current progress?
The current progress, just the current progress.
Hohenschel,
I'll abstain.
Mrs. Heenan,
Yes.
Mr. Reitenauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Wagaman,
Yes. Business and operations report. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion right now.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the business and operations report, I'll start off with the usual. We have the bills list, items A through D. We have item A, general fund bills totaling $830,248.46. Item B, food service fund bills totaling $37,608.17. Item C, construction fund totaling $102. Item D, capital reserve totaling $320,042.66. Item E is to accept the financial reports through August 31st. And then we have nothing for items F and G, special education or curriculum or technology this month. There's nothing to report there. Item H is facilities and maintenance. So this is actually basically the core of the agenda for business and operations. So items 1 through 3, they're all related. We're actually asking you to rescind the approval of the three items that were approved at the June 10th meeting from Rocky Ridge Fencing and General Contracting. It's the 3 fence quotes. We had the backstops, the general fence that goes all the way around, and also the tennis courts. You'll see in item 4 that they did the work at the pre-K fencing. They were the lowest bid. There's some conversations of lowest qualified bidder. So we decided to part ways on both sides. And so we're going to go to the next lowest bid. So items 1 through 3, we're asking you to rescind those. And then item 4, we're going to ask you to approve the one piece of fencing that he did that we did not previously have approved. It was fencing for the pre-K playground, which is actually being grant funded. But they did have to remove that fencing when they took the oil tank out. So there's new fencing there. Item 5 is to approve the electric purchasing contract as attached. It's another 2-year agreement that we use Provident Energy with. And there's a slight increase, not too significant, but there is a slight increase. Item 6 is to ratify Consolidated Engineers to provide electrical engineering services related to the high school athletic project. They actually were the company that did work hand in hand with Architera. There were some ancillary pieces that need to be finished, so they're going to complete those as well. Item 7, we kind of alluded to this during the committee reports. We're asking you to approve the proposal from Acela Architects and Engineers to provide the drawings and scope of the project for the new greenhouse structure and an addition to the wood shop at the high school for a total cost of $107,500. And I would say a big thank you to Mr. Molatoris. He has been working back and forth with Acela to really get this proposal down. Some things that we can do internally here versus some things that we didn't quite need, because this quote did start at $171,000, so we're down to $107,500. This will be coming from the job training grant from Senator Pennychuck's office and the state. That grant total is $150,000, so that'll be covered via that grant. The next 2 items, 8 and 9. These are related to items 1 and 3. So we rescinded those. Now we're asking you to approve 2 fencing proposals, the baseball, softball backstops, and then also the perimeter fencing. Those. And then when he's out, he's going to requote the tennis courts to see where we're at with that. So the first two as attached, overall, we will see a slight increase of about $4,000 moving on, but just from workmanship and quality, I believe it's well worth it. Item 10 is a change order with Musco Lighting related to the high school project. We knew this was coming. It was for the permits and inspection fees associated with it, the lighting, and then there was also some rock drilling that had to occur. So item 11 is to ratify an agreement with Elk Environmental Services to dispose chemistry lab chemicals. This is a big one. It's $35,649. Typically, we would budget about $10,000 annually. Unfortunately, this was not done since June of 2022, so we are several years behind. So just talking to Mr. Molatoris, I think we both agree that we need to get back on track and do this annually to help, curb the cost. But it's something that is necessary and that we have to do. So we're in the process of moving that. Basically, they have everything packaged up at this point and ready to go. Item I is to ratify a proposal from TransFinder related to, it's called Market Connect. It's for $1,920. Just full disclosure, this is really something that we are not going to use, but Christ Transportation is going to use. Essentially, it can see, so they have the GPSs and everything connected to it, but it'll essentially take the transponders and our software and pull the time entry from it. So when people, like when the route starts and ends, it'll be able to pick that up in the system, and then their essentially depot manager will be able to compare to when they clock in and clock out. So it'll help there. That's something that they asked for. So essentially, TransFinder only works with school districts, so we have to put it in our name and then they'll reimburse us. So certainly a beneficial on their end. So we're willing to work with them on that. And just full disclosure, we are in contract negotiations with them. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. Should we for some reason not move forward with them in years to come, it is an annual agreement, so we can cancel this at any time. So then the next one is moving on to the solar presentation. So solar is something that obviously is growing globally. And then we as a district have looked at it here and there, but there really was it wasn't cost effective. It didn't make sense for us to do it. There was no significant reason to really move forward with it. However, things are changing. There's a lot of federal subsidy opportunities. And then also now the state has a grant available to us as of actually November 1st. It's now open. So just couple those two things, the incentives, it is now advantageous for us to move forward with it. From a financial standpoint, you'll see there's significant revenue streams that would be available to us. And I think we as a district, obviously we're always mindful of tax increases and then finding new revenue streams. I think we all are aware, like our assessed value is not growing. So we need to find alternate paths. And I think this is really a wonderful opportunity for us to find another revenue stream that is fairly stable and dependable, that could help, one, the unfunded mandates, but just the cost of operating that is significantly increasing from year to year. So this could really be an opportunity for us to have that other revenue stream that, we could absolutely use. And then also, there's a variety of ways that we could earmark this money. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to the experts of solar. Yes. And they're going to give us basically a quick presentation. So what we're going to ask of you this evening is basically to allow us to continue exploring this. So there's a grant, and it is really first come, first serve. So we'd want to move on this quickly to see if we're awarded any funding from the state via this grant. And also we would have to go out and essentially find an ESCO, which is like Brewer Garrett when we did the chiller. go out the RFQ, request for qualifications. So with that, I will turn it over to Quandle. Jen from Quandle is going to start the presentation. Floor is yours.
Started. Hello, thank you all for allowing us here tonight. My name is Jen Loveman. I'm with Quandle Energy Solutions. With me tonight, I also have Corbin Van Dyke, Rob Strickler, and then from Raymond James, Ryan Brockman. There we go. A little bit of history on Quandle. It was started in 1882 in Minersville, Schuylkill County. The office that you see in the middle top picture is still there. That's where I work out of. If you're ever up in our town, it's right next to our football field. We also have, it's in its 5th generation of being family owned and operated. Through the family leadership, they've actually acquired and operate now 5 companies total. And as I said, I'm in the Minersville office. That's the original, but there's also Harrisburg, Scranton, Pottsville, Bethlehem, Hershey, Maryland. So we try to hit, we have a lot of markets that we are in, a lot of government, for-profit, commercial, school districts, as well as services that we can offer. The one tonight, as you can see in the pre-K to 12 school district setting over 30 years, we have $5.5 billion in construction costs, and our services range from anything of a small renovation to difficult renovations with new builds and now energy solutions. As Nicole set up, a little bit of my history. I'm new to Quandle. I'm coming up on my 2nd year. Prior to that, I was the Minersville Area School District's business manager for close to 15 years. Being a small town and not a lot of revenue sources, we're constantly hitting our taxpayers. So prior to my departure, the Federal Inflation Reduction Act, as we'll refer to tonight as the IRA, came out. With that, we started looking into it. Minersville was just about done actually to do a deal. The Solar for Schools grant kind of came out, so they're submitting for that as well. But this is a way for the school district to generate revenue and hit those mandates that you all talked about tonight, and I'm fully aware of them. The big piece with the IRA is that government entities, school districts, were not allowed to take any tax credits direct. You don't file a tax return. That changed with this act, because now through the direct pay method, you can receive those tax credits directly. So that's the big key tonight that you should focus on, leveled the playing field, and you can get credits back for the investment tax credit up to 30%. And then Ryan here will talk about your financials, but you could see the benefits of it. I'm going to let Corbin kind of go through your schools and
Hi guys, my name's Corbin. Like Jen said, I'm the solar development lead for QES. And what I put together for you guys is just an evaluation of what's possible for solar on your property. And the first part of that is the kind of just the site conditions, understanding the kind of constructability and maybe some of the legal surrounding the zoning implications of doing solar on your property. So you got a image of the high school here, the area outlined in green and outlined in red. That's all of your guys' land there. It's about 61 acres. And as you guys know, you're in Long Swamp, the township. That's also your governing ordinance. That's important because they will be the authority having jurisdiction and making some of those zoning and permitting approvals. So the green parcel is zoned rural and the red parcel is zoned industrial. So on both of these, solar is permitted. It's a conditional use. So essentially it can't be the primary use, and it won't be because you got a school there. That's the primary use. So that's just a green light for zoning generally. I will say, as you see in the comments, we haven't reached out to the township yet. This is kind of part of that process to get permission to do some further exploration to make sure there isn't any, zoning or permitting issues that the township would have. I also want to point out what utility territory you guys are in. That would be Met Ed. So why is that important? One, they would be the utility you're interconnecting your solar system to, as well as you would be participating in net metering, which means your excess generation would actually be bought back by that utility. And you'll see more how that maps into the financials later. So that's the site conditions for you guys. And then what we do is we have a solar modeling software that we use to, one, get the production of a potential array that you guys would do. This takes into account module specs, inverter specs, racking and orientation, as well as the typical meteorological year for your specific location. So use that. This was actually the first model that I came to the administration with. I put this together for them, and we had some further conversations, and they said, well, we were thinking that, we purchased that land, that we may want to use that land for something else. So what we really want to focus on is Model 2 here. I think this provides a better solution for you guys, where you have some ground mount still on the field, but some of those rows were removed, allowing you some more space utilization. We are using the retention basin there. That's kind of that dead space. You're not really using it for anything else, so why not put solar there? Also, you'll see carports in the middle there. So they're also called canopies. So cars can park right underneath them. You can do, they're customizable for heights. If there's any issues with bus lanes, we can make sure that buses can get under them as well. You can even do LED lighting underneath them as well. So a lot of flexibility there. But what I want to draw your attention to as well is you'll see kind of some of the system specs here. You'll see the AC nameplate capacity is 3 megawatts. Why that number? So that's the maximum allowable capacity under net metering. So if you were to go bigger than that, then you would not, the utility, Met Ed, would not be required to purchase your excess generation at the price to compare. So it's actually really good that you guys can actually go to that limit. You're going to really maximize your revenue there. So you'll see the first year production. That probably doesn't mean too much to you right now, but it maps into our financials as well. And so does this initial cost estimate here. I will say on our next, we got some images actually of the carports. This will probably be better than just my explanation. So as you can see here, this is pretty much what you guys would have in those middle lanes there for your parking, the double spaces. You can really, you're not using them right now. Why not put solar there? Very easy. We even talked with, buildings and grounds. They would be able to plow as well. That was, one issue that came up. Plowing still possible with these. And then if you were curious, here's some images of what the ground mount would look like. I know some people may have an issue with it being an eyesore. That's kind of why we wanted to tuck it back away from the school. There's also various options with screen fencing as well as vegetative barriers that you can look at and decide and say, maybe we don't want, like, out of sight, out of mind. If you don't want to see it, that's fine, and we can make that happen. And then we got another image for you here.
Corbin, do you mind if I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Just for the carports, I just wanted to kind of tell the board that we have actually been going back and forth with Bethel Maria School District. They have it at their one high school. They have the carports. We were actually discussing, pros and cons. Just tell us your useful information, things that we want to know. And we're actually I believe we are going to take a trip over to Freedom High School and kind of see them for ourselves. But that would be the closest district if we would want to go see exactly what they look like in person.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I highly encourage you to go out and check them out. So real quick here, we do have a sketch. I want to say tonight we're only talking about solar, but just so you guys have an idea of what that space, could potentially, what it could be utilized for. Mainly, I just want to point out the high school. So that's your high school footprint there. It's approximately 130,000 square feet. It wouldn't exactly be like that, but you got, I did this drawing. I'm not an architect, but you still have room for parking and access roads and other things if you wanted to do that. Lastly here, again, I mentioned this briefly. We'll go over it a little bit more. Under net metering, the utility is required to interconnect your solar system to the grid, but that is at your expense. So you'll have to pay for that as part of the project. So in Pennsylvania, there aren't any publicly available capacity maps. So we can't really know that cost for sure up front. However, we do have an estimate in there for $200,000. Also, there is a interconnection application process that we would go through as part of if we were to get under a development contract. And basically, we would have the system design, we would submit it, and they would come back and give us that cost. And that's when we would know for sure what it would be. There aren't any questions on the either really site conditions or models. I'm going to hand it over to Ryan for the financials.
One more point on this slide. One of the benefits is as long as that interconnection is from a system that's 5 megawatts or less, that cost will go into the formula that you get reimbursed on from the federal government. So the 30% base reimbursement would include that cost as well. So you get some of that back. So this way. So I'm Ryan Brockman with Raymond James. We are the bond underwriter for the district. We've done the last several financings, whether they were bond issues or bank loans. And I'm going to go through the financial portion, next 2 slides, to explain what this looks like financially from that second scenario that they had just went through. First, on this slide, we have a bunch of the assumptions that go into the model. As you can imagine, there's a lot of different information that you plug into this model to get the end result. This model is something we put together, and we want you to understand the model when we get there. We want you to feel comfortable with the assumptions. If there's something in the model that you're not comfortable with, maybe it's the cost of rising electricity, we can go back and we can change it. We can run scenarios so you can see how the end result is impacted by assumptions that you want to change. On the left side, this information is what we receive from Quandl. It's the sizing of the system. So it's a 3 megawatt system. And again, 3 megawatts is the max you can install based on Pennsylvania law, where you can sell all the power back to the grid at the retail rate, which is the cost to compare. Right now, you're paying 5+ cents per kilowatt hour, which is incredible. The current cost to compare through MedEd is on the right side of the page. It's over 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So you'd still be paying your 5 cents for the electricity you're using. You could put a solar field in, sell all that power at a rate that's double what you're currently paying. So economically, it makes a lot of sense. So we have the estimated cost we received from Quandl's $8.88 million. The year 1 output for this system is just under 4.8 kilowatt hours for year 1. From there, we assume what is known as a degradation rate. It's basically each year the panels presumably are going to lose some efficiency. I I have it on the right side there, the degradation rate. In years 2 through 30, we're assuming 0.5%, which is the industry standard. And then for years 31 through 40, we're assuming that you lose more efficiency, so 1% degradation rate, to be a little more conservative for the last 10 years of the model. On the left side, we have the tax credits. The base credit of 30% is just over $2 million. There is a kind of a mini penalty within the IRA. It says that any local government, any tax exempt entity that pays for a renewable project and reaps the benefits of the IRA, if they do so with tax exempt proceeds, if you're issuing a tax exempt bank loan or tax exempt bond issue, then you have to take a 15% haircut on the total amount of the credits that you're entitled to. So in some situations, it may make sense. What we would do is we'd look at your current debt portfolio. Like we have a client in Dauphin County that is going to be out of debt in 2 years. We know with Act 1, once your mills go away, it's nearly impossible to get those mills back in the budget. So they're actively looking for projects. They're looking at solar, so they could fund solar from years 3 through 6 or 7 in their budget. And since it's just such a short time horizon to pay that back, in that case, it actually makes sense to pay a higher taxable interest rate and receive the full amount of the credits rather than locking in a lower rate, tax exempt, and taking the 15% haircut. So we would do some analysis as we get closer, further down the road. But at the moment, we're assuming you would issue tax exempt bonds and you would take that 15% haircut, and that is factored into that number. There's also an Act 129 utility rebate that we're assuming of $100,000 that would come back to you. Some of the other assumptions, there's another revenue source that you would receive in addition to selling the power back to your electric utility. The other revenue source is SRECs. So for anyone who owns residential homeowner, businesses, whoever has solar on the roof or in the field and they're generating solar power, they're entitled to these what are known as SRECs, solar renewable energy credits. And it's basically, the way to think about it is it's a piece of paper that says that the power that you generated for the year comes from a renewable source, and there's a market to buy that power. The reason it exists is because electric utilities have their own set of standards, and if they're producing X amount of power on their own, there's these renewable portfolio standards that says a certain percent of your total power that you're creating has to come from a renewable source. And if they're not generating that power, then they can go to this market and purchase the power that other people have purchased and count it as their own. So it's a supply and demand market. The value of those credits have ranged from $30 to $45. For now, we're assuming $30 per credit for years 1 through 5. To be conservative, we're lowering that to $20 years 6 through 25, and then $10 years 26 on. So that's just another revenue stream that an owner of a renewable project is able to bring in. The price to compare, that's the retail rate. We're assuming the cost of electricity increases 2% annually. There's an O&M charge, which you have a company, you'd be under contract for likely a 5-year increments where they'd come out and service the panels and make sure that they're performing the way they should be. So there's a cost built in for that. And then the two final costs, the inverter replacement. The inverter is a key piece of the system that converts the power from DC to AC, and that usually fails depending on which you go with. There's usually a 15-year warranty or a 20-year warranty. So the numbers that we received from Quandl assumed a 20-year inverter. Once that warranty would expire, we have built in a replacement at a cost of $300,000 to get that replaced. So that's in the numbers. And then a system teardown after year 40, assuming the panels are not working at all or not producing any power, we have $178,000 built in to dispose of those panels. If they're still working after 40 years, there's nothing saying that you can't just keep them up and keep generating revenue after the cash flow projections that we have put together. So actually the bottom of that slide, if you look at the total revenue over a 40-year lifespan of this solar array, the total revenue side comes in at $32.5 million. Total expenses, which are driven by the debt service to pay for it, the O&M, and then those two additional costs that I outlined at the bottom, the inverter replacement and the teardown, Total expenses are 14.7. So the cumulative net benefit back to the school, again, over 40 years, is $17.8 million based on all the assumptions that we have outlined on this page. And then the final page gets into some more numbers. So in this page, we have taken the district's debt, which is your existing debt appears in column 2. I don't know if I can make this bigger. Ooh, it's a little sensitive.
You guys don't see it. You guys have this.
Okay. Yeah, so column 2, you have 4 outstanding bond issues or bank loans right now, 19s and 20s. So your annual debt service payment each year is just over $2.5 million. And then you're out of debt after your final payment in 2032. So that is a very short debt profile for a school district, which sets you up well for a project like this, where you could basically put the principal to pay for this project in the 4 years after where your debt drops off. And then you're completely out of debt in 2035. At that point, you can see on the far, is that column 5, the green numbers? Those are the revenues that would come in from this solar project. So up front, 600,000 plus per year. But once you're out of debt, you'd be receiving still that 600 plus thousand each year as a revenue driver that can be used in various parts of your budget. You could put it in capital reserve for future projects. There's any number of things you can do with those monies. But I'd say a key takeaway with this slide is even when you first install the solar system, your total run rate, as I mentioned, is just over $2.5 million in column 2. If you look over in column 6, your total debt service impact after the revenues, the annual revenues from solar are taken into account, actually lowers your debt service payment to, we'll call it $2.25 million. So you're actually paying less in debt service if you factor in the revenue from the solar side. One other item, the IRA payment that you would receive from the federal government, it's 30%. If you take the haircut, it's going to be 15% less than that. That we've received word from bond counsel that is not treated as bond proceeds. So it's free and clear of arbitrage. So you could take that money, invest it to some unlimited yield if you wanted to. If you knew you had a project 5 years from now and you wanted to stash away some money, you could put that in account, earn as much interest as you want on those funds, and you would not be subject to the IRS coming back looking for, the catch-up payment for arbitrage. It's not bond proceeds. So we've had several clients that get creative with this. They try to structure the debt to pay off as quickly as possible, because once the debt's paid off, then you really start cash flowing. We've had others that want to take that money and invest it because they have other projects. We have others that want to do a larger principal payment on the debt side in year 2 or 3 after they receive the check, and then put it towards the bond issue to pay that down quicker. So there's a lot of different variations, a lot of different ways we could attack this. Yeah, that's basically all I had, unless you had any questions.
So kind of initially when we were going through this, I would say almost the second paragraph, what he talked about, it doesn't include that $2.1 million that we could potentially receive with credits. So my recommendation essentially would be to put that in capital reserve to help bump that up a little bit. You never know what's going to happen, so it's always good to have that savings. I wouldn't use it to essentially pay down the debt or to help offset it. Kind of second thing is any of the proceeds that we get, I wouldn't put toward directly offsetting the new debt service or our current debt service. Like we talked about, it is in the budget, so I want to keep it there and keep it like flatline for years to come. Because what my initial thought is we're essentially extending this for 3 years, our current debt service. But if you really think about it, between now, after those 3 years, I think this really sets us up well, as we do have a high school that is 20 years old. So it is going to start needing some repairs, maintenance, expensive upgrades, I guess you could say. So whether, that becomes our next project or something else in the district and we have to take out debt, then we would do that there. But I think having that as a savings and then also kind of keep that debt service flatline going forward. That's what I would do. The other thing is the proceeds, say we get $600,000 a year. Right now we kind of, I guess, live or die by, our surplus at the end of the year of, we had 750,000. So we're going to put 500,000 in the capital reserve. We don't really have a solid capital reserve funding plan. It's really, to see how we did. I think my recommendation would be to take this revenue here and earmark some of it as a consistent revenue stream and put it over to capital reserve so that we have money to continue keeping our buildings, properly maintained so that they last longer. And then obviously as, instructional needs change, like right now we're talking about, the ag program or the wood shop. I think this really sets us up well to, be prepared for the future in a sustainable way. So I think that's my 2 cents on preliminary, how we would handle this revenue. So.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. If you look at the debt service impact from just the solar in that orange column 3, up front, it's a lot lower because we're wrapping around your existing debt. So those payments are about $363,000 a year. If the revenue you're bringing in from the solar project is $630 a year, maybe set aside a portion to cover that increase in your debt service so you're not raising mills in the budget for debt. And then the differential using to everything you mentioned.
So tonight the goal is to once we present this to you, this isn't the final plan per se. This is a mock-up of what we've been working on to get us to this point. To see does it financially make sense. So that's kind of the reason rationale for presenting this to see what we're asking for tonight is if you conceptually like the idea, we'd like to move forward with applying for the grant, $300,000 grant from the state. And then also do this RFQ to be able to make a partnership, and then we would start down the road of a project that you would have formal approval of the project before we proceed at a later date, presumably spring. So that's kind of the timeline and frame up of what tonight is, and I've heard this. There's a lot more steps to get to the final end of this, but for now it's just. Do you like the idea? If you do, are we okay to move forward with the grant? And are we okay to move forward with connecting companies with RFQ?
So that grant's for $25 million and they're splitting it into 3 quadrants. So a third. There's a third going to suburban Philadelphia, and then you take the rest and kind of split it in half. And a third of the 25 million would go to, center of the state, and a third to the western part of the state. So, and they did say it's first come, first serve. There's other factors that are going to go into it. If you're in an area tied to a recent coal closure, they'll give you bonus points for that. There's some other factors. But yeah, the application period is November 1 through January 31st. So a couple months. But I would urge you, if it is something you want to consider, try to get it in quicker rather than later, because it is kind of first come, first serve. Thank you.
Is there a risk when we were to quick hustle and submit the grant and win it? Are we then locked in? We have to use that 300,000 on a project, or if at some point in the future we go, oh, shoot, we really don't want to do this. Say the community blows up and they hate the idea or something. What do you do with that 300,000 of grant relief? Yeah, so you can't, there's an option to say, sorry, we jumped the gun. Yeah.
I look just to our solar partners at Nicole, just because I want to make sure.
It would essentially go to the next person.
So there's really no risk.
The only risk is the $100 application fee that the state requires. That's the only.
You're springing for that. I actually have just a quick question, and forgive me, this might be so naive, but you're familiar to me, but Raymond James as a brand for us
Yeah,
is
it-
not. I've heard of Raymond James. Like, what happened
So
to
we
our
were
other?
with RBC Capital Markets.
Yeah, thank
We were RBC Capital Markets forever, and several years ago, our boss left and went to Raymond James, and he had a non-compete. When he got that back, he started recruiting it. So our whole group actually left RBC and went to Raymond James 2.5 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, same team though. Scott Kramer, who's
Yeah.
come to a lot of these meetings, he's with Raymond James now. But yeah, same group, still good.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Yeah. Yeah. Where is Raymond James come from? Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes.
Mr. Regnauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yeah.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mr. Wagman, may I jump back? It's an informational question. It doesn't impact the vote we just took. But on the item Elk Environmental with the chemical disposal issue, when you read that document, it goes through all the stuff that they're going to dispose of for us. And then there's two things at the bottom, right above the signature, that says, oh, wait, by the way, we're not taking this one thing. And this second thing, I can't pull it up right now, but I think it said something like, we're not even sure what the heck to do with it. Can somebody just like speak to what's our game plan since we can't seem to get rid of it? Like, what is the stuff and how dangerous is it?
I'd be happy to. One, they can take it away. For the exercise of getting it done for the board meeting tonight, they didn't have the quote back for those two pieces to that. So our game plan is they're guessing it would be about an extra $1,000 to add those two pieces. They can take them. That's not an issue. We can either add them to this or we can store them and add them to next year's at this point. You know what we do next year.
Okay. So we're not stuck with some
Absolutely.
nasty stuff that nobody wants and we have to live with. That's right.
It's a great question. The very first question I asked them.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it's a phase 2.
Right, I'm trying to get it. Give it their supplier back.
Thank you.
Right, superintendent's report. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
All right, the floor is yours, sir.
All right, only one item under the superintendent report this evening, and that is to approve the modified continuation with Kutztown Area School District for our field hockey partnership program. The partnership agreement is the same agreement that was approved back in the late spring, early summer, and carried out for this fall season. Overall, I think it went pretty well. The record was pretty good. There were some bumps and bruises along the way, primarily because of facilities and some transportation and getting those things all worked out. So the idea behind this now is that we will move the team. Partnership remains, but we'll move the team here on site with the turf field, which helps with all those transportation and field usage things and those sort of things. So Kutztown administration has been very much in favor of this. They're looking to approve it in the next week. I forget the exact date, but this agreement would allow us to put this in place, continue the partnership, but move the field hockey program here to our facility. That's the only item.
Any questions or comments?
Question. Well, I talked to you on the phone about 2 weeks ago about an archery team. Can we look into that, or can we start turning the wheels on that?
Yeah. So there are teams that are out there. We're trying to find out if it's a PIAA or if it's a club. So there's some pieces. Just give me a little time on that. I need to get Mr. Pinelli on board for that as the new athletic director to spend some time to explore that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm just very excited, and I think it won't cost the school district that much financially to get it going.
Right. Right. Yep. Definitely on the radar. Yeah.
Hearing other questions, can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Rightower,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yeah.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld,
Yes.
Mrs. Here,
Yes.
So I know Ash spoke last meeting and had a chance to kind of express her concerns, but also that on behalf of other students that might be in a precarious situation in terms of safety. In what was approved this evening, that does not have any limiting factors to that to create that scenario. Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page. So students are protected and parents.